Kenny Dillingham is the betting favorite to be Auburn's next head coach, and it could be the perfect situation for the Tigers.
You are Locked On Auburn, your daily podcast on the Auburn Tigers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, welcome on into Locked On Auburn, your daily Auburn Tigers podcast. I'm your host, Zach Blackerby, and thank you so much for making Locked On Auburn your first listen every single day. It's a bonus edition of the show as we are joined by the Ben Taylor, the host of Auburn Opelika this morning over at the Auburn Network family of stations. Kenny Dillingham, the betting favorite to be named Auburn's next head coach, according to the folks over at Vegas. And I like this for several reasons. One, Dillingham took ASU to the college football playoff. Obviously, that's exciting. That's great. But it's a situation, and it's kind of gone against some of the stuff that I've said where I wanted a defensive-minded head coach. If you can get Kenny Dillingham and keep DJ Durkin as defensive coordinator, Ben Taylor, I think that would be awesome for the Auburn football program.
I think that is one of the best case scenarios as far as Auburn moving forward, not to mention his familiarity with the area, with the recruitment, he'd probably call on some former players to help him. Honestly, with his history and what he's got offensively in his brain, Zach, we've talked about who do we retain, what players enter the portal, what players jump out. This may change some of them that may have looked at possibly entering the portal and leaving may not now because they've seen the options and they've seen what he does offensively. So I like that pick. I'm also love the fact whenever these odds came out, like immediately after Hugh Freeze was fired, like the way the list is compiled. And I'm sitting there going, man, these guys have got some insider info. The fact that they've compiled a list of 20 coaches already, 20 like when they tell an athletic director, say, hey, you should always have a short list of coaches, just go ahead and reach out to somebody in Vegas and say, hey, man, who's my short list?
Who am I going to call? No, it is interesting because that same list that has Dillingham as the leader, Dirk is not even on some of them.
No, and he's down there like, I think the latest I saw, like down around 18. Now, he does have a better chance than Saban, who is at like 20, I think, if I'm not mistaken. So he did make the top 20 list, did Durkin. But the first list I saw that came out, there was like 12, the first 12 or first 15, he wasn't on the list. And I was like, that's kind of odd. A guy that
is odd,
that is literally taking a losing team right now with a losing record and playing the best defense in the country, one would say, because the other two, the top three to hold teams under 24 points are number one, number two, and Auburn, who's probably not in the top 50. So that just lets you know that the job he's doing right now.
Yeah.
So I was a little shocked that he was so far down the list or not even on the list when it first came out. But Dillingham, I think just the ties he has, and it's kind of shocking because if I'm not mistaken, isn't he an ASU grad, if I'm not mistaken? Or
which is some of the things where like I kind of question when as soon as the conversation started happening around like, okay, Hugh Freeze's job is truly in limbo here.
Yeah.
He was one that's popped up because of the Auburn tie. I mean, he was here in 2019 as Auburn's offensive coordinator. Yeah. I think he coached quarterbacks too. And I think he was actually more of a quarterbacks coach because Gus, that was back and forth on the Gus is calling plays. He's not calling plays. But so like there is an Auburn tie. And I actually talked to somebody who's kind of close to him last night or who played for him. And, they think he'd come back. But I do wonder, would he leave his alma mater? That's a big deal. But if he's being told no by top guys in the portal because they don't have money to compete with folks that are out west, right? Like USC or, Oregon, Washington seems to be kind of getting it going. I mean, so there's obviously a lot of money out there, and you don't think about Arizona State when it comes to that. That's what you got to hope for, right? And we've seen other guys whose names have popped up, and like they're at their alma mater, like
Clark Lee, his name
Clark Lee, and then Sumrall to the extent of like he's still being tied to the Kentucky job, right? Assuming Stoops does get let go at some point,
or
but
just leaves. He could even accept another job. Stoops. They've talked about him looking at other programs. So
yeah, right. So I'm kind of lumping Sumrall into the Kentucky, the Kentucky job there. So it can happen. I mean, people do it.
You bring up
It's just kind of interesting.
You bring up an interesting point though. NIL and support. I mean, here Dillingham is in his alma mater and not getting the support he probably needs. But that's also because they love to focus on basketball and golf and some other sports outside of football. Football is not what it in Arizona State is not what it is in the Southeastern Conference. You just brought Sumrall's name, who the reason people tie him to Kentucky, but then you don't hear him wanting to go because clearly basketball is getting the money first before football does at Kentucky. So NIL, even though it's his alma mater, would he want to go there because he knows he's going to be second on the depth chart when it sits down to start divvying out money. Clark Lee, what's keeping him is that foundation they have that just has money that none of us know about. Apparently Vanderbilt has got hidden away somewhere. And so it's interesting when you start talking about guys, they want to go back to alma mater. Yep. 5 years ago, they probably did. Now they want to go who can provide top dollar for players to come in and put them in a successful position. And contrary to what a lot of the SEC likes to say about Auburn, I do think Auburn is in a good position to be a team that can do that, especially over the Mississippi States, Ole Misses, Kentucky's, South Carolinas of the world. I mean, Auburn is, even though you heard Joe Klatt say that they're not a top tier job, I still think that it's a very good job.
I think it depends on what we're talking about, if it's a top tier job or not. It's a top tier job in the sense of what you have access to,
right?
And what's made available to you, and what your resources is, and what your fan support is.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I'm saying in that regard, that's where.
Like, can you define a job based on the people who have failed at that job recently? Like, the Auburn job is not Brian Harsin and Hugh Freeze. The Auburn job is, a top 20 team in history when it comes to total wins, a top 10 team when it comes to NIL spending, a top 3 when it comes to fan support and home field environment and culture and tradition. The Auburn job is not Brian Harsin and Hugh Freeze. And that's what people outside of Auburn, or people who don't know what they're talking about, are viewing it as. And that's not like Kenny Dillingham, John Sumrall, DJ Durkin. They're not looking at the Auburn job thinking, Brian Harsin and Hugh Freeze failed, so it's not a good job. They're not thinking that. No. None of these candidates are going to be thinking that.
No, they're going to see what is available to them, new facilities, as well as, like you just talked about, the support. I mean, you're talking about a losing team this year that just had another sellout against Kentucky. So the fan support is there, and I think that is what led to the demise of Freeze. Is I think the fans' expectations are where they need to be, which is just to win home football games. I mean, they're not asking for national titles, and I think that the Dillinghams of the world, who's been here and he's seen that. That's another thing that I think and that's another reason I think he's kind of vaulted to the top of the list, or at least started there, is because there's a familiarity with the program. Not necessarily the same administration, but still the program in general and everything that it has to offer.
Yeah, and I think it would answer a few of the questions about, like, okay, quarterback. I mean, we saw Cohen be asked specifically about, quarterback track record, with what he did in his short stint at Auburn, 2019. So that would have been Bo Nix's year. And then obviously with Liz Nix at Oregon.
Yep.
And now, was Leavitt the quarterback last year for Arizona State when they went? I think
yes.
I think he was. And so, I mean, he was getting a lot of buzz going into the season because of that. So
Scatterbo. Yes.
Scatterbo. Great. I hate he's hurt. That guy was awesome to watch.
That was awesome.
But yeah, so I think there's that. Now, there's one other positive I want to get to, and then there are some things that I think are worth pushing back on and having the conversation about. That's next, right here on Locked on Auburn. Today's show brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. FanDuel is America's #1 sports book. Ben, you can bet on the Tigers. They're a 7.5-point dog on the road against Vanderbilt. that seems a little high to me. I'm not going to lie to you. But like if Vandy scores 20, can Auburn score 13? And I don't know the answer to that.
I like the Tigers on the road with a regalvanized, rejuvenated locker room.
I love that. I hope you're right. I think a lot of people are going to agree with you. Right now, FanDuel's giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So head to FanDuel.com to sign up and play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Today's show also brought to you by our friends at Game Time. Game Time is the best place to buy tickets. Game Time is the app that gives the advantage back to fans. It's the easiest way to score last-minute tickets at the best prices with no surprise fees. What you see is what you pay. Ben Taylor, I can't imagine buying tickets anywhere other than with our friends at Game Time.
Nope. You could have even done it back when the Savannah Bananas were here. You could have gone through Game Time and seen where your seat was and what view you would have.
That's right. That's right. Take the guesswork out of buying college football tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that's promo code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Download the Game Time app today. Thank you so much for making Locked On Auburn your first listen every single day. I think another positive with Dillingham is, and this goes against a little bit of what I've said so far, is I've wanted a defensive-minded head coach because it's so different than what we've had, and I kind of would like a shift. But in the situation of keeping DJ Durkin on staff needs to be a priority. And I don't think you could do that with John Sumrall. I think you could do that with Kenny Dillingham. I think it would be silly for Kenny Dillingham to say, no, I don't want DJ Durkin on staff. We're going to keep him kind of being the guy here, the my number two, and then of course, essentially the head coach of the defense. I think that would take a lot off of Dillingham's plate in this scenario. So I think those are two kind of a positive and a negative from my point of view. Is like, yes, you keep Durkin on staff, but I would like a defensive-minded head coach. If I'm being honest with you.
Yeah, but the other positive that I take away from somebody, like a Dillingham is his youth. And I know that some people may frown upon that, but I said a couple of weeks ago, I may have said it with you, I may have said it with Kyle, I'm not real sure, but I said my worry with Freeze, this is prior to him getting canned, but my worry with Freeze is what's his 5-year plan? And his 5-year plan did not look like it included coaching. So it made me always think, okay, that's great. If we still get him through the season, is next year's last year? Is the following year's last year? Whereas with somebody like Dillingham, he's young enough that I think there could be a 10-year plan there. There could be a 15-year plan there. So if he's able to grab a hold of somebody like Durkin, as young as he is, to bring on a defensive-minded guy directly under him and continues to pay him, Durkin gets paid well to be a defensive coordinator at Auburn. If that continues or goes up, I don't see any reason for him to want to leave. But who knows? If he does well these last few games, he may be sought after for being one of these other head coaches somewhere else. So he may not be able to keep Durkin in that aspect.
Kenny Dillingham, 35 years old.
I know. It's
35 years old. Has not been a head coach for very long. So how much of a concern is that? Took over Arizona State in 2023. Talked about this a little bit with John Sumrall on this morning show, where this is his 4th year of being a head coach. At least Dillingham, this being, I guess, his 3rd year of being a head coach. Went 3-9 in 2023, went 11-3 last year, of course, making the playoff. They're 6-3 so far this season, I believe. At least his experience is in the P4. Is there a jump from the Big 12 to the SEC? I personally think so. That jump is closer than what John Sumrall's jump would be from Troy to Tulane, then Tulane to the SEC. So I think that's kind of a point in Dillingham's favor.
Well, and Dillingham has the experience being in the SEC prior, as well as over there with Oregon, able to steer Bo Nix in the right direction.
And Sumrall had been he's been at Kentucky and at Ole Miss. So
it'll be interesting but you're right. I mean, you're talking about two different levels of play, in my opinion, when it comes to that. So, and all that comes with it. I mean, the old joke back when Harsin got hired, where Bo and Charles asked him if anybody had been through his trash yet, and he looked at them like they were stupid. And literally, that's what takes place in the Southeastern Conference. Like fans are that way. So, some negatives. I think as I showed positive being youth, I think some people would view that as a negative. I think the same thing with Sumrall. If I'm not mistaken, I think Sumrall's under 40 as well. And most of the head coaches are like 40 plus. If I'm not mistaken, I think
he's like 42.
Oh, I thought I heard he was 39. Which it's still, still young, still a lot of years left in him.
He's 43.
43. So that is, that would be, I guess, the knock on Dillingham versus quote unquote Sumrall would be he's even way younger than say Sumrall is, even though I would say it would be easier, I think, like you said, to make the jump. But, negatives on Dillingham too is, hey, was the year he went to the playoffs all because of his running back and his quarterback. And so really, as far as coaching, can he be successful, or are we headed to another 6 to 7 win season for the next decade, average, like it's been in the past? So, because I think that's what Auburn fans are yearning for right now, Zach. Everybody always asks, is that Auburn's just they're trying to exceed their expectation with championships? No, I think right now the regular Auburn fan on the street, I call it the big box store test. Hey, would you take 9 wins a year? I think most Auburn fans would say, "Yep, I'd do that." And so I think they're trying to
9 wins a year with the occasional 10. That's different now than it used to be with the expanded playoff.
Correct. And
there's going to be, especially when they go to 9 conference games, there's going to be 9-win teams that make the playoff.
Yep. And so can Dillingham be that? Can he be a 9-win guy? Or is his head coaching that he's done, his experience, reflect more of the 6-3 that he is now, or that first year where he didn't do great? Or should we expect the guy that we got that took him to the playoff?
Yeah. And Leavitt went down. I know that was later in the year. And then obviously, you lose a guy like Scatterby, and they had some guys go to the league. But I'm excited to see it.
He doesn't have, as we mentioned in the first segment, he doesn't have the resources to be able to bring in the transfers. When you lose a Leavitt or a Scatterby, you may replace one of them. I doubt you're able to get those same type 2 players back, which can make all the difference in the world as far as your success of your program.
Right, for sure. Ben Taylor, how can people check out everything you've got going on?
AUnetwork.com is the easiest way. We do sports each and every morning just after 7 o'clock. We'd love to see you, or download the Radio Alabama app.
Please like the video. Please subscribe. We'll see you next time. This has been Locked on Auburn.